Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and for this Christmas review, I'm going to review National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation starring Chevy Chase. This is probably one of my more favorite classic Christmas movies. Okay, I guess it's not classic, it's from the 80s, but it's always been one of my favorites just because of how mindless it is. It truly is just a mindless movie. It is one of those movies that, as I was watching it this time around, and I realized it's been a very long time since I've seen this movie, and I didn't realize it had been a long time, but as I'm watching it, there were so many things I had forgotten about, and I was like, oh my goodness. But as I was watching it to prepare for this review, I'm just like, oh my gosh. What am I even going to say in the review? I mean, there really isn't much of a story to speak of. There's just enough of a story to give it that structure of Clark Griswold wants a family Christmas. And he's desperate for a family Christmas. Not just like his mom and dad, wife and kids, but his in-laws and just all of that extended family all together in one room. And let's just face it, we all have families, and as much as we love them all, we know that they're crazy. And to shove them all together in one room, it's kind of a crazy idea. And in this movie, I couldn't help but notice on their little advent calendar, like, the family arrived on December 15th. They stayed through at least the 25th. That is 10 days of in-laws and parents all together in the same room. So if I was to hit the positives of this movie, I mean, yes, the story is just barely there. It's just enough to have these situations. But that's what this movie is. It's like, it's a situational comedy movie. It's just about Clark Griswold in different crazy situations. In that case, Chevy Chase in this movie kind of reminds me of Harry and Marv from Home Alone, because he's like Kevin McAllister and those two guys all together, because he creates his own traps and then goes through his own series of crazy antics. Like, just watching him on the ladder and stapling his sleeve to the roof, hanging there, and then, falling into the bushes as his wife is calling to him for dinner and all that crazy stuff, and then trying to play it off cool from the bushes, like, yeah, on my way, as he's just laying there in the bushes, probably thanking God that he's not dead or paralyzed or, anything else like that. But, I mean, it's just like, I feel like a lot of those antics he could get into, I can relate to. I mean, number one, the thing I love about Christmas is family and coming together with family. And if this movie had a moral, and I really doubt that it has a moral, but if it did have a moral, it is that idea of the family Christmas. Even if the family can drive you crazy, what a blessing to have all the family together for Christmas. And that is the whole of his motivation, and he's so desperate for it. It's hilarious to just watch him be desperate. Like, he's so desperate to have his house look amazing for Christmas that you can just feel his frustration after spending an entire flippin' day on Christmas lights. And he goes to plug it in, they don't even turn on. Are you kidding me? I can understand that frustration of spending so much time and effort and working on something so hard and then it just not coming together in the end. It's really frustrating. So, like, when he's like kicking the snow and kicking the reindeer, it's like, yeah, I'm with you, Clark. If I was in your situation, I'd be doing that same thing. Of course, you had the whole comedic situation of he plugged it into some other breaker, so when they flipped on the light in the garage, it was the power source that let the light on the house turn on, so they kept going on, off, on, off. And I can relate to his frustration of, why is it doing this? Why is it sometimes working and sometimes not? I mean, it's like, ugh. On top of the fact that, the whole thing where he just wants to have fun. And so he greases the sled with, his works sled greasing or KitchenAid, whatever experimental thing that's supposed to make something super slick. And it made his little sled so slick that, I mean, it created sparks and fire as he flung down that hill, across the freeway, and into the Walmart. From all of those amazing classic situations that are just freaking hilarious in this movie, I just feel like the thing that continues to draw me to it is I get Clark's desperation. His desperation to have a family Christmas. I can understand those crazy and embarrassing situations that he gets himself into, and in his way of trying to fight his way out of it. I mean, it's like, he's a character that I can get. And I think that's probably my biggest strength towards this movie. And yes, I don't have a real-life Cousin Eddie who lives in a trailer and empties the waste into my sewer so you light a match and everything blows up. I don't have that. But don't we all have a Cousin Eddie type? I mean, granted, we're not probably going to go through such cartoony situations as Chevy Chase. At least I hope not. If you have, let me know in the comments. So while we probably all don't have these exaggerated cartoony situations, I think one of the things that is very attractional about this movie is the fact that we all have family, and we all have crazy family members in that, and we all get together for the holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it's usually where a lot of those crazeball stories come from. And so I just kind of feel like that, especially for me, is why I really like this movie. It's just a movie I can relate to. It's a movie that I find absolutely hysterical. And if this movie has negatives, and of course it does. I mean, number one, the story is really weak. But I would think the biggest thing that's a negative towards this movie is it's so character-driven towards Clark Griswold that if you don't like Chevy Chase, if you don't like this type of comedic characters that he does, then you're probably not going to like this movie. Because that's what this movie all is. It's Chevy Chase going through these situations. It's not a story. It's just a bunch of crazy situations strung together by the fact that it's a family Christmas. And that's all that it is. So, like, if you like that kind of situational comedy, if you like that it can be exaggerated and cartoony, and if you like that character Chevy Chase can play, then you'll like it. If you don't like that kind of character Chevy Chase can play, or that type of comedy, then you won't like it. For me, I like the mindlessness of it. I like the family aspect of it. I like the crazy stories and crazy things that ensue when families in town, because that happens. Not as cartoony, but it happens. If you saw National Lampoon's A Christmas Vacation, what did you think of this movie? Make sure to let me know in the comments, and while you're there, hit that subscribe button, become a Durbanian. More Christmas reviews on the way, and reading way too much into Christmas movies because it's Christmas time, and it's time to get into those Christmas movies and talk, and super exciting. I'm Durbin. Thank you for checking out Durbania.